Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jeongmin Kim,
John Lee,
and Joon Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, May 21st. It's a little bit close to 5:30 p.m. today, and wow, a lot of things happened this week.
Too many things happened, so we need to speed through it as much as possible. Let's start with Samsung. That was a headline of the week and the previous week and the previous week as well, but it's sort of concluded now for now.
For now, yeah. Okay, so long story short, this was a 6-month ordeal. The labor unions wanted a lot more increase in bonus pay, especially considering what happened with SK Hynix, with all of their bonus pay for their semiconductor workers. Samsung said that, hey, we want a piece of that pie too. And management said, we can give you a little bit, but not everything that you want. The union said, then we will go on strike. And the strike was supposed to happen today, but because of a almost last-minute negotiation last night, that is on Wednesday night, the strike did not actually happen.
So it was literally overnight. And to explain a little bit more what happened in between was, like, first, we did discuss it last time, but the union was not well united at certain point because Samsung DS, the semiconductor sector, they were sort of having like an infight with the DX sector and others as well. DX is for the appliances like smartphones, finished products, basically. So they were disagreeing on how much of the union, collective bargain result goes only to the semiconductor sector. And that was until the very end, one of the negotiation points, and also part of why the labor side walked out twice, I think.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times. Like, we kept hearing that this will be a final 사후조정, the mediation, but then there comes a second final mediation. So that was entire week.
No one wanted this to fail. But as you just mentioned, the unions themselves, they were not united. And that's because unions knew that this was not really good optics. We have to remember that Samsung workers, especially Samsung semiconductor workers, are some of the best paid workers in the country. And this business, this sector right now, it's booming. It's not about workers suffering layoffs. It's workers saying, hey, we want more money. And because they are already highly paid workers, when everyone else is looking at those unions, they're not thinking, oh man, we have to support the little guy. They're looking at 2 really big fish fighting over a small pond, if that metaphor works.
Exactly. And I think that was exactly the buildup toward the labor minister getting involved at the end. And of course, industrial minister as well, but Lee Jae Myung himself too. So because of the public, and this is what's quite particular with South Korean society, like when it's like corporate and labor relations, public sentiment is actually very important if you are a top core national interest company that's leading the export sector. And because they are core national, interest, there is an actual legal clause to make government have the right to actually mediate if things fall through. 긴급 조정.
And that was a threat.
That was a threat. And the public sentiment side was involved when President Lee Jae Myung started talking more publicly and explicitly about it. There was a buildup. Like, initially, he said something last week about, how there should be, they should try to see eye to eye, and, they shouldn't seek like just vested interest benefits for themselves. They have to look at,
Big picture.
a big picture and stuff like that. But he wasn't being explicit. So until last week, Samsung union head was saying, oh, that's about LG, but it wasn't. And this week, since the public sentiment was really, really not favorable for the Samsung union workers, Lee Jae Myung actually stepped up and he said something along the lines during cabinet meeting, I believe, that the 노조, the labor unions, should actually
Keep within their line.
keep within their lines. 선을 넘지 마라.
And one other thing that we have to mention about that cabinet meeting is that the president also said something very interesting. He said that even investors cannot get any kinds of money that is pre-tax money out of the corporations. They have to wait for all of that to be all of the taxes to be paid first before they can get their hands on the dividends. But the unions are saying, give it to us before it's all taxed.
And I felt like that was actually a really fair point too. And I think it was choreographed very well as well to come at that timing because it came on the heels of the controversy because of Kim Yong-bum, who mentioned AI-related extra
The citizen dividend
the
idea.
citizen dividend idea, and Blue House got into a fight with Bloomberg for having that headline and saying that was why Kospi went down, which is true. But anyways, they sent out an official letter asking for apology and correction, and so that was spiraling. And then this was President Lee's way to say, "Hey, I'm on the side of the Kemi, the stockholders, basically."
The individual stock owners, yes.
Stock owners. And then he was using Samsung case to basically not stand with the labor union. And this was very interesting turn of his career, actually, because he comes from very, labor union sort of background. And this put Kim Young-hoon, the labor minister, on a very awkward and tough spot, but because he used to be the head
Of the KCTU.
And so last minute, he had to be involved to make sure that Samsung management and the labor union come to an agreement and not strike.
And what was really fascinating was what happened just this morning. Now, after the deal was made, the deal was that the unions would get 10.5% of all the excess profits that they have gotten. And they wanted 15, but they got 10.5. But what really interesting happened this morning was that there was this activist group that represents minority shareholders. And they went up and said, we are going to challenge this in court, precisely using the same argument that President Lee Jae Myung made during that cabinet meeting. And so this is not over. Now, the unions are going to vote on this tomorrow being Friday when you're all listening to this. But if the shareholders actually say, hey, we need to discuss this in the annual shareholders meeting, which, by the way, took place this year in March, technically speaking, if they're going to have another one, this cannot go through until the next one next year. Anyway, moving on to another corporate headache. Let's talk about Starbucks.
Oh,
boy, this was just unexpected and just so dumb.
I wanted to actually bang the table a little bit for the effect that I wanted to make and for the pun joke, but I don't think I should do that because of the microphone and sound effect issues. But anyway, yeah.
The context to that, so I don't know how to explain this exactly in English because it's like very, it's historical and cultural connotation.
Can I give it a try? All right. So the phrase is in English, I banged the table and the guy said, huh, and he died. So why is this phrase particularly important? This phrase, I banged on the table, appeared on that poster. And where this phrase comes from was from the 1980s. During the protest movements, during the pro-democracy movements, one university student was tortured and killed. And after he died, when the police were giving their report and the journalists asked them what happened, that's what the cops said. I just banged the table and the kid just heard and died.
Yeah. And that is a reference that Ilbe, which is the extreme right-wing community in South Korea, for a very long time, it's one of their favorite phrases to use to make fun of people alongside other very seriously defamatory jokes related to former President Roh Moo-hyun.
It's messed up.
And like Sewol ferry incident as well. But it wasn't a coincidence from many signs on that poster. It was for May 18th, which is
5.18.
5.18.
Gwangju Democratization Movement.
And the name of the May 18 event on Starbucks poster was Tank Day. And it's quite, I don't have to explain this, right? But also in alt-right communities, Chun Du-hwan, the dictator at the time, his nickname is Chun Tank, Chun Tank.
Yeah.
And so there were like a lot of signs in that poster that this was by someone in Ilbe. And there
This was not
also
a mistake.
also there were a lot of little things in there as well that is difficult to see it as a coincidence. Like the tumbler size was 503 milliliters. You can never really find that sort of tumbler here anywhere, but guess what that is? Park Geun-hye's cell number.
Uh-huh.
And there were other bunch of things on that poster. So conclusion on social media at first was that this was intended by someone. And how did this filter through without being censored by the marketing head and PR team and whatever.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering as well. But anyways, this caught President Lee Jae Myung's attention, I guess when he was doom scrolling at night on Twitter. And then Lee Jae Myung wrote a post about this. And it spiraled the next day. And Jeong Yong-jin, who is famously nicknamed 멸공가이, 멸공 means...
He is the chairman of Shinsegae, which is the parent company of Starbucks Korea.
Right. During Yoon, like he posted something in support of former President Yoon, who's jailed now, about anti-communism stuff. And he's famous for that sort of ideological leaning. And then even him, he had to issue an entire statement of apology saying, I really respect the deceased of the martyrs who fought the democratic movement. And we are so sorry that this happened. This will never happen again. I will sack everybody involved in this. And guess what? Starbucks Korea's CEO was sacked.
Mm-hmm.
And also spiraled the next day. And the Seattle Starbucks global headquarters also apologized.
Daddy showed up.
Yeah, and they said it was an unforgivable mistake. And what does this tell us about doing a joint venture with a South Korean company if you're a global company, John?
It tells us that, firstly, you should really vet your people. It tells us that you really need to have people look into all the different kinds of levels and the different kinds of messaging. And you need to do a lot of internal thought processes to make sure that you don't do something this stupid.
It's just so stupid without like much calculation how this would benefit them. And also corporate communications. If you're a joint venture with a Korean company, you have to make sure that the clearance system is quite sound to prevent something like this. But then I imagine in other companies, something like this would be very difficult to happen, actually.
It's just one dumb thing getting dumber and dumber and dumber, and no one stopped it.
No one stopped it. And so we will keep an eye on this because it seems like there is an investigation starting now. And there's actually interesting clauses in the JV agreement between Starbucks Global and Starbucks Korea, 이마트 신세계. And so this might actually spiral further.
It's going to be studied.
And let's move on to something cuter and more adorable.
Me?
Yes, but something else. Takaichi and Lee summit in Andong. Why was it Andong, Jun-ha?
It was Lee's hometown.
Yeah.
Hometown city of Andong. It was just like sort of a response, a friendly response, shuttle diplomacy, since Lee went to Takaichi's hometown, city of Nara, in January, I believe. It was quite a lot of show of friendliness between the pair, as we've seen since January, their little drum show.
Yeah, and this time they did like
they swapped glasses.
Swapped glasses.
Yeah, they swapped glasses. Takaichi was giving Lee a pair of glasses that her husband recommended, and then Takaichi,
something like former prime minister wore or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
Indeed. And then Takaichi took Lee's glasses and tried them on for herself and had a nice little photo op that followed the drum patrol last
and then
year.
Lee gave like a lot of gifts that
Right.
were very well prepared too, like glasses, like the dishes, the china,
moon jar.
and the paintings and the bag and the stuff like that. Anyways, the optics was quite cute. But aside from that, what kind of deal came out of that summit? It was a very short summit.
There were, of course, some differences, and by differences, I'm talking about really which parts of the agreements they emphasize or de-emphasize. But the one thing that they both really agreed on is energy cooperation. Both countries were talking about energy swaps, for example, swapping crude oil and LNG depending on necessity. So it really showed how these two countries were getting closer together regarding what their most pressing needs are. Now, of course, there were some things that were not talked about. Now, Juna, you were focusing on what's called the AXA, I believe. Could you walk us through what that was?
Yeah, so it's the Acquisition Cross Services Agreement. So it's basically a first step to recognizing the Japan-South Korea Security Cooperation as an alliance. It's mostly acquisition of Japanese military goods, South Korean military goods, and a swap process. What we heard from the Japanese Foreign Ministry, who held a briefing just minutes afterwards, they said that they could not disclose anything that came out from the summit related to the AXA.
So it wasn't a denial. It was just saying that they're not talking about it in public.
And there was no mention of anything related to history, right?
Yes.
But it was interesting that one of the wrapping papers that Lee Jae Myung used to wrap the bag, I think, there was like an explanation in the note from the Blue House that this was about Joseon 통신사. 통신사 means diplomat during Joseon Dynasty. And the ear of the painting that describes the Sukjong era, and particular ear when Joseon Dynasty visited Ulleungdo to claim sovereignty of Dokdo. So that was a nice touch.
Even with gift giving, there's going to be a little bit of just trolling here and there.
Yeah, but they didn't mention it. But that year was very familiar to me, so I looked it up, and that was that.
I'm sure that the Japanese diplomats, they did their research after, and they got
Yeah.
and they got it.
Or if you didn't know, and if you're listening to it right now, that's it.
Moving on to the next topic. Again, this is going to be Iran related, but this time it's a different ship, not the Namu that we talked about for the past 2 weeks, but now it's the HMM Universal Winner.
So the very large crude carrier, I think is 300,000 ton.
Carrying 2 million barrels of Kuwaiti oil.
And it successfully passed through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. Cho Hyun, the foreign minister, he was at the National Assembly Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee hearing where he announced that the ship or the vessel was passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
But it didn't pay Iran or anything, but it was per agreement. Right?
Yes, so he did say it was per agreement between the two countries. He did decline to give the name, even though it was reported by Bloomberg. But just for safety reasons, and also the foreign ministry didn't name the ship by name, but they did release a statement hours later confirming that the vessel had left the strait.
So how many oil tankers are left for South Korea to figure out now?
That'll be 25.
That's a lot of ships.
And the interesting thing about this VLCC that traversed through the area, it used the same maritime route that Chinese tankers had used. And that's not a coincidence. That maritime route is the same one that Iran insists that countries that are traversing that strait now use. And herein lies a problem. That usage of that maritime route is basically a de facto acceptance that the Iranians have control over the Strait of Hormuz. So if you were at the State Department and you saw this sort of thing, and you saw a key East Asian ally basically doing what might have been necessary to secure one of its ships, but at the same time still accepting Iran has control over the strait, I would be a little irate.
Sure. But then if you're a South Korean official asking that irate State Department official, then what can you give us? What can you say?
That's a very good question. And the probably answer is nothing.
So
but
they're
we
angry.
expect alignment anyway.
I see. Then I see why Jo Hyun made such decision then. And let's keep an eye on those 25 other vessels that are still pending. And just on Namuho, just very quickly, an hour ago, Jo Hyun, the foreign minister, said that the probability of the unidentified flying object that hit HMM Namu, which now is found by anonymized official, that it's very unlikely that it's not Iran.
What a mouthful.
Jo Hyun just said that the probability went down, that it could have been a drone. So I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, his
What am I
comments
guessing?
on dismissing the possibility of a drone, it also echoes what Lee Sung-lak said last week as well. They're still looking over the debris from the unidentified flying object, air quote.
Alien ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, UFO. But it is I think Cho Hyun confirmed yesterday during the hearing that the conclusion of the looking into that unidentified flying object and the debris will conclude quite soon.
All right, something to keep an eye on. Let's move on to the final topic. Michelle Steele, what did she say?
She is the ambassador designate from the United States.
Right. So she had her confirmation hearing or congressional hearing yesterday. She did say that she will make sure that U.S. companies like Coupang do not get discriminated.
What was the question that was asked to prompt that answer? Do you know, sir?
Yeah, so she was referring to the joint fact sheet that was agreed upon by the two countries in October 2025 in Gyeongju and was released weeks later.
But just before Coupang.
Yeah. And she described, she said that the document clearly states that the U.S. company should not be discriminated against or face unnecessary barriers.
Was this about the special bill that South Korea passed, or were there any other?
There was nothing that was really clear
and then
about
she
her
just mentioned
statement.
Kupang. Okay, that's
Mhm.
interesting.
So basically, Michelle Steele volunteered to give an answer to a question that wasn't asked. Okay.
Maybe she wanted to really bring that point home.
Week ahead, Junha Park will be headed to Singapore to attend Shangri-La Dialogue.
Yeah, so I'll be at the Shangri-La Defense Dialogue in Singapore, where I'll be chasing a bunch of defense officials and defense ministers. So if you are in Singapore at the time, please do drop me an email or signal.
And all of this information will be sent to your email inboxes by Monday at 2 p.m. via the Week Ahead newsletter. So if you'd like to know more, please subscribe. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
I'm Joon Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.